there! Welcome to Professional Learning Week, and thanks for choosing to watch this little video tutorial where we will create a math book in Excel to assist us with our ever-important task of collating and interpreting student data. In this video, I will demonstrate how to use Microsoft Excel for basic data entry, cell formatting, using formulae for basic statistics and assessment scores, and the introduction of more complex algorithms specifically to identify honest students in your classes and to help you derive Victorian curriculum levels from your student data. This tutorial is in no way comprehensive and may not work for your brain, so take from it whatever you will. Before we start with the data entry, we need to set up our markbook. Let's start by downloading a class list or a CSV file from Compass and copy-paste those into your new markbook. We can format each sheet within the book if we like. I like to color coordinate my spreadsheets to my timetable and folders for each class. And we can even rename each sheet with the class code. I even add color to these. We can add as many sheets as we have classes and do the same for each. Our last step here is to freeze our heading, row and columns. To do this, we will select cell C3, go to the View tab in the ribbon and select Freeze Panes. Now when we scroll through the markbook, we can see the students' names and the assessment components at all times, making reading our spreadsheet much easier. For my first assessment example, we're going to imagine a measurement assignment in my mathematics classroom. For this task, I want to include the total number of marks, the number of days the task is submitted late, and the final percentage score of the task. Here, I have randomly generated some data for the total number of marks for each student. Let's pretend that this task was out of a total number of 22 marks. Let's ignore the late column for a moment and calculate each student's final score by dividing the cell containing their total marks achieved by 22 and then multiplying by 100. The output value is the student's score as a percentage. To round that to the nearest whole number, I will use the button in the number ribbon group. I also want to add conditional formatting to those cells. First, I want to know if I need to post a low achievement comment on Compass. If I add a rule that formats cells containing numbers less than 40 as red, that will help me to easily spot those students. Similarly, if I want to know which of my students have done really well and are on track to receiving honours in my class, I will add a rule which highlights all cells containing values above 85 as green. I can also go in and edit those rules so that it includes cells containing 85% or 40% by switching that to greater than or equal to. Finally, I like to add a little bit of cell formatting to help me organise my data from future assessments. Because this is an assignment, I may need to factor in the days late that a student submits a task. Let's say this student submitted their task one day late, and so did this student. Now, we could take the easy option and modify the cells formula to subtract the number of days late multiplied by 5 so that the students lose literally 5% for every day that they submitted their task late. However, if we multiply their original score by placing the original formula in brackets by 1 minus the days late cell times 0.05 or 5%, the student will now lose 5% of their score for each day that a task is submitted late. This prevents a student scoring less than 50% on their task, having already submitted 2 weeks late and therefore receiving 0% for the task, despite the fact that they still submitted the work. As you can see now, our student at the top of the list only loses 4% this way, rather than the whole 5%. Let's add some basic statistics to our spreadsheet. We'll include the minimum score, maximum score, mean or average, and the median score. These are the same statistical scores that Compass also calculates for each task. To calculate the minimum score, we will type equals min, open bracket, and we'll select all the cells above before hitting enter. Similarly, for the maximum score, we type equals max, open bracket, and those same cells above. To calculate the mean, we'll type equals average, open bracket, and select again all the cells above. And finally, to calculate the median, we type equals median, open bracket, and again, select all the cells above. Let's now introduce a function which will calculate for us how many students in the class pass and how many fail an assessment task. To do this, we will use a countif function. This function only counts cells if they contain a certain number or term. So we type equals countif, and we select the range of student scores. We place a comma and place in inverted commas greater than equal to 50, or whatever the pass rate is for that assessment. Similarly, for the failure rate, we type equals countif, the same range, comma, and again in inverted commas, less than 50, and hit enter. It's important to have the criteria for the function in the inverted commas and to close all brackets. For this example task, I can now see that 11 students have passed and 4 students have scored below 50%. Let's move on to another type of assessment task. For my example, Cat 2 will have a statistics test. For this task, I want to include components for multiple choice, short answer, extended response, and of course their final score. I've gone ahead and generated some randomized data for these tests. Now let's say that this task is out of a total of 31 marks, which is not a nice fraction to convert to a percentage. To calculate our percentage score for each student this time, we will type equals sum and select the 3 cells before it. We'll divide by 31 and then multiply by 100 before hitting enter. Now, instead of repeating our earlier formatting steps, I'm going to select a previous final score cell, select the format painter, which is the paintbrush in the top left corner, and then click my new cell. That will copy all the formatting, including my highlight conditions, to the new cell. We click and drag. Again, to save time and energy, we're going to copy our basic stats from earlier and paste beneath our new cells. Excel will automatically modify the data to match the information above. So it's the end of the semester, you've never used Excel to store class assessment data and don't fancy entering everything again just for our next steps on reporting, have no fear. If we go to the Learning Tasks tab on each class on Compass and select Grid View, we can export the data as a CSV by clicking the button here. This creates a file with all results and feedback from the year on an Excel spreadsheet for you. From here, we can delete the feedback columns because we don't need them, and we can delete any other data that is not useful to us by right-clicking and deleting whole columns or rows. To give us something like this, we can format the page like in our previous steps or in any other way that you like before we move on to the next steps. Now, it's the end of semester, and I want to cross-check my semester average against what Compass calculates, just in case there are any discrepancies. This is a good time to go in and edit your assessment data so that a second NA for the semester now reads 0 to make these calculations accurate. So we will type equals average, open bracket, and we'll select the 3 cells with the final assessment data, or however many cells there are for this calculation. We'll then click and drag. You might also want to copy our previous conditional formatting. So again, we'll select a cell with the formatting that we want, click the format painter, and click and drag down that column. I can also copy and paste my statistical data again at the bottom. Let's now introduce a slightly more complicated algorithm. We're going to make Excel find our honours students for us. We're again going to use that countif function from earlier. We'll type equals countif, and we'll select the first assessment task cell, greater than or equal to 85, again in inverted commas, and close the bracket, plus the second task cell, again greater than or equal to 85 in inverted commas, and so on for all tasks. We'll add as many countif functions as we need for the semester. If you downloaded your data from Compass, you can include the whole range by clicking and dragging consecutive cells instead of selecting each cell individually before entering the criteria greater than or equal to 85 and hitting enter. Finally, still with all cells in that column highlighted this time, we're going to add conditional formatting. We select the equal to option, and when the cell reads 3, or whatever the number of assessments in the semester are, I want my cell to light up in green. From here, I can see that only one student in my class has received honours in the subject for the semester. To calculate my Victorian Curriculum levels for my classes, I'm going to start by labelling each column with the strands in my subject area. There are 3 strands in mathematics, but this semester's example data only assesses 2 of them, measurement and geometry, and statistics and probability, so I will only enter those. Before completing these next steps, it's imperative to discuss within your faculty what above, at, and below level look like in your subject and for each assessment task. We can use different ranges for each assessment and any number of percentiles or groups for the range of abilities in our classrooms. As always, exercise your own judgment of your students and their capabilities before entering any final levels into your reports. To calculate our VicCurric levels, we're going to use the if function to create what might be the most complicated algorithm in this tutorial. The if function is a logical test function that will return a certain value depending on the criteria in the selected cells. I only have one task for the measurement and geometry strand, so I type equals if, open bracket, and I select that score. If it's less than 40, which is the score that I flag on Compass as a low achievement, and therefore I might decide that's my below level benchmark, I want Excel to output for me a level 6 months behind, so a 7.5 for this Year 7 class. However, if that's not the case, then I will need Excel to consider a different criteria for the next percentile group up. Here, I might decide that no students in my class are above level and enter the at-level score of 8.0. However, I want to have an above-level group too, so I will add an if function within my existing if function. I type if cell D3 is less than 85, then Excel will return 8.0. And if they are an honours student, it will return an 8.5. So they are 6 months above level according to my data. We close off the function with 2 brackets in this case and hit enter. Of course, within this function, you can choose the levels to match the task or components of a task and Victorian Curriculum strands being considered. Here, I have just chosen to match my previous conditional formatting for the sake of simplicity. Lastly, we click and drag and format those cells however we like best. For my statistics and probability strand, I have 2 assessment tasks to consider. So, using a similar if function, I type equals if. This time we'll use the average of those 2 assessment tasks in cells H3 and I3 are less than 40. Then I want Excel to output 7.5 as below level. If that's not the case, then the average of those cells, H3 and I3, if they're less than 85, I want Excel to output 8.0 as am I at level and 8.5 as above level. Again, we close with 2 brackets, hit enter, and we format however you like best. Now our Victorian curriculum levels have been calculated for us and I only need to go in and look for individual discrepancies for my students. In this way, you can look at the curriculum once when designing or marking the assessment and deciding on its grading. Excel will do the rest of the hard work for you. Whilst this video was in no way comprehensive, you could use any of the skills from this video to either create an Excel markbook or just to help with your reports. We can also add weighting to assessments, have Excel help us moderate marks or rank students, or to calculate indicative scores for the VCE level, all using modified versions of the functions within this tutorial. It goes without saying that whatever you create to assist you with your work needs to work best for you and your brain. If you have any questions regarding this tutorial, or just generally with Excel moving forward, you are more than welcome to reach out to me for assistance. Until then, I hope you found this video in some way educational and possibly even useful.